Art of the Kickstart. Lucky number 13.
Welcome to the artofthekickstart.com, where entrepreneurs are constantly pushing the envelope to build businesses of greatness. Inventors are innovating and creating the products of the future, and backers stand strong for what they believe. These are some of the great thinkers, inventors, and leaders of our time. Here are their stories.
Hey guys, welcome to Art of the Kickstart. Today I'm extremely excited to have Rich Thrush on the line to talk about Thrush, the leaning tricycle that helps kids learn how to ride a bike, which we all know is a pain. Thanks so much for coming today, Rich.
Thanks, Matt. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Very good, very good.
So I like to kick all these interviews off with a success quote, something you live by, something to motivate others. Do you got any?
You know, I'm a product designer by trade, so I come back a lot to I don't know if you've heard of Dieter Rams, but he was a designer for the company Braun. He has 10 principles to guide product design. So I think I come back to those quotes quite a bit, and I'm not going to go through all 10. You can look them up online if you want, but he talks about what good design means, right? And a lot of designers focus in on things like style and decor and fashion. I'm more interested in things like, is it innovative? Is it honest? Is it long lasting? So those 10 principles get into those kinds of things. In fact, those are 3 of them, right? Good design is innovative. Good design is honest. Good design is long lasting. So I try to, I come back to that actually quite often to just make sure that I'm on target with what I'm doing, that I really believe it's something that I should be putting my effort into.
Let's dig a little deeper into that. That's part of the reason I wanted to get you on here. You're a designer, someone who's amazing at making something both new and beautiful. And that's kind of some of the issues that a lot of the people on here have. We've got people that are creative, they're smart, but they're not necessarily good at making something look aesthetic, look sexy. How do you make a design that's going to appeal to others?
So we have a lot of tactics. One is just understanding people, right? So I spend a lot of time just talking to people and observing how people, whatever I'm doing, if I'm working on a drinking glass, right, I may just go watch people drink. And it's amazing. You see people drink a lot, but you've probably never really intently watched them. They spend a lot of, so there are things you do you just don't even think about. But when you start to observe and ask people about which glasses they like, or how does that glass make you feel, talking to people at a bar or whatever it is, it's amazing how much you learn and the insights that you can kind of gather that help in the design process and help guide your decision making. So, if you talk to 30 people and every single one of them said, I love glass, but I'm very concerned about the breakage, then addressing that with the design, whether it be really not using glass or whether it be using glass and making it feel like or look like a non-breakable glass, is something you can do to try to get a little closer to something that's desirable for people. I also try to boy, I could really run on this topic forever, but I'll cut it off on one more thought, which is I try to skew away from fashion. I'm not that. There are designers that do that, right? They focus in on the latest trends and really, what's the new and flashy thing. I'm not that way. I'm the guy who is doing things that, hopefully will still be around in 20 years, that people are still enjoying. So I spend a lot of time trying to make sure the things I do are functional and that they're pure. And what I mean by that is that they don't have a lot of superfluous things distracting you from what the core function or the core meaning of the product is. And again, going back to a drinking glass, you probably won't see me doing one with lots of filigrees and additional styling or decorative elements or something like that. Really, those things tend to go out of style. They may work for 6 months, right? If this is the time when everybody is excited about the drinking glass with the picture of a rustic deer on it or something, but that's in 6 months from now that's going to be over with, and they're probably going to throw that glass away or put it in the back of the cupboard or whatever. So that's the kind of thinking that I usually take to get to something that people are more excited about, that consumers are more excited about.
So I never expected to jump into this in the interview, but I think it kind of pertains. So what you're talking about, what you're reminding me of, we were talking before the show. Your family's German. It's Thrush, leaning tricycle, based off your family name. It's almost like German engineering. I spent time in Germany. It's functionality. You're great at creating something amazing. It doesn't matter, at least initially when you're inventing something, how it looks. It's just how it works, how it feels. And that's what it feels like you guys have created. You've created something that looks good, but it functions amazingly. Is that how you'd recommend most inventors go about creating something?
Well, so I do, and in a way. I mean, we have, and we have, like you say. I mean, our family. We have some German background, we have some Austrian background, Czech, and all kinds of things. So it's funny that is actually in our family culture, that we talk about that at home. I mean, my father is an engineer, and he's not a designer, but he has a very sort of direct way of addressing problems, and it's funny how these things kind of seep into your everyday life. But yeah, as an inventor, I mean, it's amazing that how people get distracted from the core of what the core story they're trying to tell, right? So if you look at the design of something, it's telling a visual story. So if you're trying to tell the story of a door stopper or something like that, you can easily distract yourself trying to do other things with the door stopper or go in different directions. But what I would recommend in many cases is to focus in on the story you're trying to tell. If you're trying to make sure that something is, I don't know, I'm struggling to think of a specific invention, but the best ones are simple, right? Because you can only tell a couple of stories to consumers. You don't have a salesperson, especially if you're a new inventor, you don't have a salesperson hawking these on the street that can talk about the 50 features or the 50 benefits of the product, right? You probably can only tell one or maybe 3 stories at best. And the most powerful design objects in my mind only tell one story. And you can tell that story visually. You can use words, of course. You'll use words on your website. You use words if you do a video or whatever. But if you walk by someone and you see them using the product and you get the whole story just by that, I mean, you turn every user into a salesperson. You turn every view of that product into a commercial. Not that I'm advocating a strong sense of commercialism, but you allow that product to speak for itself, which is pretty powerful.
It's your brand identity, and it is so powerful. And speaking of the story, what is your story? Take us through Thrush, how you and your brother founded this company, and where the ideas came from.
Sure. And actually, my brother at the moment lives in Africa, so we're pretty close, right? He's got a strong marketing and business background. I've got a strong design background, so we talk a lot about small businesses, and we talk about projects that we could do together. And since he's over there, he's doing some consulting work. He does have quite a bit of free time, right? Because in Tanzania, you're just not going out as much at night or whatever. So he's got some free days and free nights to spend on things like this. And we were talking about something we could do together as kind of like a fun project and something that we really believe in and that we're interested in. So this was one of the ideas. We looked at, actually, it may surprise people to know, I don't know if people think this way, but I think this way. We looked at hundreds of ideas. We didn't just assume that this was the best one. We just kept coming up with ideas. And we tried to be very open about what the idea could be. We were looking for great ideas that we loved. So, when you come up with 100 and you force yourself to come up with 100 ideas that you think are good, then you can start to screen them a little bit or filter them a little bit for ones that fit really well. So I would encourage people to do that.
Lead us through that process a little more. How do you come up with something that you think could be a good idea, and then how do you screen it?
Yeah, okay. So we do. I love hearing about problems. So I love observation. Going back to what we were talking before. So I'm a big fan of just watching people and talking to people. I'm generally like curious person. So you might find me in the aisle at the store when I see someone doing something, looking at a product, or out in the world they're using something, or I see a problem that they have. I love watching that. So this one came from the idea for this project. It's a product that helps young kids learn to ride bicycles and introduces them to the concept of leaning. So they never get that idea. They never get introduced to that without having to ride a bicycle. So they're kind of thrown into the deep end when they ride a bicycle. But this product is a tricycle that allows them to lean and introduces them to that concept before they get to that point. So it's a little bit easier for them to take it in. You know, it's not a high pressure situation. You're not trying to balance. You don't have your parent running alongside you. So I actually came up with this idea by watching a friend's daughter struggling to ride, and I was just watching the way that she was trying to negotiate the turns, and she was just really afraid to kind of make that lean. So it got me thinking about this, and that's one of the things that my brother and I talk about all the time are those little kernels of ideas. And also we're both we love to cycle, we love to motorcycle. So, you know, we could spend, I think the last time I spoke with him, we spent maybe an hour just talking about motorcycling, right? And technique on the track. And that was that discussion around that area of, you know, how can we teach kids to be comfortable with leaning led to this idea. But we do that all the time, right? I mean, anytime you see someone burn their hand or something like that, you say, like, how could we help them? How could we address that issue? So we have many of these ideas, right? Because anytime we see an issue or we see an opportunity, we're talking about how to address it in a new and different way. And then the other part of your question is, how do you filter it? For this project, we were interested in something small, right? We were interested in something that didn't cost a lot of money to start up. So one of the big filters we had was to try to keep the investment costs down. So we were looking for things that didn't require tooling. This product's all wood. It really worked well because we were talking with young parents and what they were excited about in terms of things for their kids and what kind of materials were appropriate for kids, and wood came up. So wood is great for us because we were able to get the products. They're actually machined from wood, so there's no tooling involved with that. Whereas if we had a plastic or a cast metal part or something like that, those are expensive things to buy the tooling for. So we were looking for things that we didn't really have to have a big upfront investment. And then, you know, that's kind of that's an unusual constraint, you know, that I'm not usually constrained by that. Usually it's a bigger project, and, you know, it's well funded, and the work I do, you know, from day to day is for other companies, and they have they have a budget for tooling, and they know they want to invest in it, and they go ahead and go with it. So that one that may, I think, apply to a lot of people who are trying to start up new businesses and be an entrepreneur. We also thought, you know, one of the obvious ones, if you have a marketing background, is it something that people want? Is it a real problem that people have, that they believe in, that they are wishing for a solution for? So we spent a lot of time trying to just understand if people were interested in having, if this was a real problem for them, if it was something that kind of resonated with them. We thought also about the price, so the actual consumer price and how much it would cost us to manufacture this thing. So we didn't want to do something that was like 10 cents, and we didn't want to do something that was like $500, because we wanted to do something that was, you know, in the $50 to $250 range, because we felt like that was something where people would make an investment. So it's spending $500 on something is a serious discussion for most people. But spending, 50 to 150, that's something that if you saw it and you really loved it, you could, even if you could live without it, you would be very tempted to spend the money on it. So we tried to get in that price range, the 50 to 250 price range. It's kind of a weird constraint, but that was one that we used. And we also talked about, is it ownable? So I think that's key to any inventor or any entrepreneur. Is it ownable? Is it something that you would actually, that no one can knock off, right? So if we just did it, we could probably do a really nice tricycle, a really nice, beautiful wood tricycle that you would want to own for many years. But the next tricycle company down the line could just have something very similar. They could design something very similar and just jump right in and knock us out, right?
So did you go the patent route?
Yeah, we do have a utility patent on this, or we in process, or it's been with the patent office for some time now, so we're expecting that very soon. And we have a design patent as well. We found that utility patents are the strongest ones, and it's also a good vote of confidence that you have something different. You have something really that's outside of the norm, and it's something that, it's a new solution. So that's the kind of, and it, like I said, I think it goes back to a lot of my philosophy around design as well, that we tend to get a lot of these utility patents. The utility, I don't know if people know what the difference between a design and a utility patent is, but a design patent would be like a design patent might be a new style of shirt or something. It doesn't necessarily provide a new function, but it has just the way that the hem of the shirt is, it has a specific curve or something like that. You can design patent that. And no one can produce that shirt with that curve in the hem. But a utility patent covers function. So that's a new way of doing something that hasn't been done before. So I guess it's been more by intention rather than by chance. We've had a lot of those utility patents. Usually you wouldn't find designers like me getting utility patents. You'd see them getting design patents. But it's also something that probably helps you protect your product a little bit better, because with a design patent, going back to that shirt example, someone could change the curve of the hem just slightly and skirt your patent. You could have someone that just has a very similar shirt out there, and all of a sudden consumers are purchasing that shirt instead of your shirt. With a utility patent, if it has a very similar function, then in many cases your patent will cover that function. So they really need to eliminate that function completely. They can have it look like your product as long as it doesn't function like your product. So those, in my experience, have been better at kind of protecting entrepreneurial efforts for people.
Most definitely. And you've got this awesome new functionality you guys have innovated. For me, when I look at this, I could see this being something that you license. Have you guys thought about that, sending it out to the big guys?
Yeah, I mean, we're definitely open to that idea. I don't think either one of us long term want to spend our entire career running a tricycle company. I mean, it's exciting. It's something we're interested in. We love to teach people how to ride. We love. I mean, it's been a lot of fun working on this project. Not only because my brother's been involved, but also we had my father actually involved a little bit and some friends. But I'm always looking to the next thing. So yeah, I mean that we'd definitely be open to those kinds of discussions. I just can't see myself running one business forever, right? It's just not that much fun.
I find that a ton with inventors. They're kind of the people, they like to launch something, not manage something. Is that how you tell yourself is?
Yeah, I mean, I love launching things. And I think long term, I mean, there's another step for any other business, right? I mean, so if I think about the long arc of this particular business is, it's a single product business, right? It's also exciting for me to talk about what could the next product be, and what's the right one for this brand. that's a cool problem to attack. So that's that I could see, those long-term kind of thinking is cool as well. I just don't, and it, it may not even be a tricycle, right? I mean, we were hoping that the brand would be about, fun and movement and learning. So it could be, I don't know, a Thrush hang glider or something. I don't know. But you can imagine how far those things can go, and so that's cool in its own right. But at the same time, I would love to get into. I love getting into other problems. I've done all kinds of different products. So this one is not I'd love for this not to be the only thing in my life.
And now I want to jump into the launch round, Rich. Do you sound good?
Sure.
Today's Art of the Kickstart podcast is brought to you guys by Audible.com. I love podcasts. I love books. I don't know about you, but I think it's one of the best ways you can possibly get business knowledge and insight into your head, help further your career, further your journey in life. If you guys go to artofthekickstart.com/audible, you can get a 1-month free trial and download of any audiobook on audible.com. Over 100,000 titles. They've sure to got everything you're looking for. And really, what better way is there to take your business to the next level? Whether you're reading Steve Jobs, Guy Kawasaki, there's so many great options. Look at what the greats have done and learn from them. Here we go. Welcome to the Launch Round, where we take our guests through a series of rapid-fire questions geared towards unlocking the inner inventor and entrepreneur in all of us. Get ready to blast off and unlock your inner potential. Let's do this.
Rich, what does it mean to be an inventor?
To me, I think it goes back to a different way of viewing the world and offering new solutions that are meaningful for people. I don't think if your invention is something that doesn't help anyone, then it doesn't seem like invention to me.
What's the biggest challenge you've had in business or life that's really tested you and made you a stronger person?
I think the biggest challenge is knowing when to compromise. So with design especially, it's always difficult, right? To know when is the right time to stick to your guns and say, this is the most important aspect of the project or the product or the business or whatever it is, and knowing when to collaborate, because I think it's important to collaborate too. So weighing those two together are against each other, that's a difficult challenge, and it's ongoing. I mean, and certainly I've failed there in the past. I've let other people, I've compromised too much and done work that I felt was probably a little watered down. And then I've also been the other way where I've stuck to my guns maybe too much, and the work I've done has been very pure but not very successful. So that's an ongoing challenge that I'm dealing with every day.
Innovator's Dilemma. Speaking of which books, name 3 that have been real influential in your life, business, design, everything?
I think one that sticks out in my mind is it's not really a business book, but there is a book called Go Like Hell, Ford versus Ferrari. And it's really about the 1960s battle for the race at Le Mans, that Ferrari was just winning year after year. And Ford decided they wanted to enter that battle, right? So, and it took them, I think, 3 years to really to win. But 3 years of work to unsettle a long-standing champion is pretty impressive. And the book gets into the day-to-day discussions and challenges that Ford went through to try to make that happen. I mean, it didn't happen overnight. So I love that book. Not at all a book that is about entrepreneurialism or business or design or marketing or anything, but it's the same kind of thinking. And then I love to read books about user interface. So that doesn't mean in a very technical user interface way, but actually the experience of the user. There's a book called Designing Interactions by Bill Moggridge. So he's done a lot of the early digital products that you're probably really familiar with. So there's some great stories in there about the designing of the first mouse. So the mouse for a computer. Somebody designed that, right? That's before that we didn't have a mouse. So they had all these discussions about, I mean, what should it be? What's the best way to move this thing around inside the computer? There was just no, I guess they had 4 buttons, an up, down, right, left key. They had these ideas about like a roller ball that you could move to try to move the cursor around inside the computer. But the mouse, I think, is probably the most common one. And that won out. So he talks about in that book about why and what drove them to come up with that idea. I mean, it's really an ethereal concept to talk about moving this cursor around inside a computer, and the rationale for that is pretty interesting. And then finally, another one, you can tell my reading habits are really odd. They have nothing to do with design or business. But there's a book on traffic and the flow patterns of traffic. It's called Traffic. It's by Tom Vanderbilt. So it's really talking about the phenomena you see in traffic, and it's fascinating, like the patterns that we as humans create when we are tied up with vehicles. So I'll just throw one out there, which is trooping. So you've probably experienced this when you're driving along the highway, that people tend to troop up. That means that they tend to gather up in a group, and then you run up on this group, and then they're kind of stuck there. So I don't know why it talks a lot about that, and why as humans we tend to do that, and it's in our DNA, and I don't know where the origins of it come from, but it talks about that phenomena and how it happens and why we do that as humans. So it crosses over. I mean, reading a book about traffic doesn't seem like much fun, but it turns out it's pretty interesting conceptually.
There's so many different things that speak to the nature of people and who we are. And then the last question in the launch round for you. We all love great design. It's something amazing that inspires us. What's the worst piece of design you've ever seen? Call somebody out.
What's the worst piece of design I've ever seen? So, and I think Philippe Starck, he's a great designer, and he does a lot of things that are fun. But the one thing that I'm not interested in, and I think is wasteful and kind of silly in a lot of ways, would be when people try to make like some kind of a design statement or something like that. So Philippe Starck has a juicer. I don't know what the name of it would be, but it kind of looks like a big spider or maybe like a rocket ship, and it is functionally. I mean, the intention is that you would cut a lemon in half and grind it on this thing, but if you ever use it, it just goes everywhere. Like it just splatters all over the counter, and you will not get any juice into your glass. But it's kind of an interesting. I guess it's more of a sculpture than a design. But if it was just a sculpture, then that's great. But I don't think it barely qualifies as design. And some designers will talk about that kind of work as being the core of design and being exciting. I'm not in that camp. I qualify that more as art. I think it's a cool piece of art, but I think it's a pretty poor piece of design work.
Yeah, you're half engineer, half designer. That's what it sounds like. Make something functionally amazing.
Yeah, and I love that challenge, right? I mean, I've spent a lot of time doing, and I really enjoy doing artwork too, right? I enjoy doing woodworking or painting or whatever. I mean, or just drawing, just for drawing's sake. That's a lot of fun, and that's its own thing, right? I mean, to me that's more art, and I'm very appreciative of art. Our house is full of photography and art, but I'm not trying to masquerade that as design. I'm just letting it be what it is. It's an artistic statement. It's enjoyable. It's interesting. It makes you think in different ways, but it's not solving a problem for anyone, and that's I think that's where I would draw the line between the two.
So, Rich, your campaign, you still have 50 days left. You guys have been kicking butt. People are buying this. They're excited about it. But there's always mistakes. There's always problems or regrets that we had. If you started over today with the Thrush campaign, what would you do differently?
I'd love to hear from people. So, if you have any thoughts, I would love to hear people's feedback too. So, feel free to write us a note. Myself, it's always tough to self-judge. That's why I love to hear other people's opinions, like, oh, if you only would have called up the local news or, done something like that. So I think I wish there was a way to make the interface on Kickstarter even simpler, because I've found that people have struggled a little bit to use that interface, and I'm almost tempted to like adjust something so that it really walks people through that process. That's Kickstarter, though. That's more of their user interface. But I think it hurts, because I've actually heard from a few people that they were unable to make a bid, and these aren't people that are on the computer every day, right? These are people who are maybe not as tech savvy. But I'm spending so much time talking about that kind of observation. I wish Kickstarter was just a little bit easier to use. So I don't know how I could address that problem in the future, but I think I would think a little bit more about trying to maybe have a tutorial or help people through that process in some way to just make it a little easier.
Yeah, at least multiple backer buttons. It seems kind of strange that it's only located top right.
Yeah, it's I hate to dish on these guys because it's a really
They've
cool
got a great
idea,
platform.
but it's really cool.
So, Rich, my last question for you. You and your brother have made something amazing. You guys created something to help kids everywhere learn to ride a bike. If you had to give advice to inventors, designers, entrepreneurs out there looking to build a product, build a business, and do something great, what would you tell them?
Be comfortable. This is something someone said to me one time. Another designer said, be comfortable killing your babies. It's a really terrible statement, but what he meant by that was that you should have many ideas. You should be open to many ideas and be ready to cut the ones down that don't work. So what he was saying is, don't just come up with one tricycle, come up with 50 ideas and pick the best one and feel good about that. I think I see a lot of people, especially entrepreneurs, falling in love with one idea and not being able to step away from it. And that's great. You need that passion. You need the passion to see something through, but it's also very difficult to, if that's not the right idea, and what are the chances of that happening, that the first idea that you really loved is the one? You can think of it almost like dating or something, right? Like, you don't go out on one date and that's the woman you marry. You date around a bit. You try to learn a little bit about yourself and other people and what makes a good fit for you. So that's the advice I would give to people. Make sure you test out quite a few ideas, date around, and make sure you make the right choice, because make the right choice for you, because then it's gonna go so much easier.
Been such a cool guy to have on the program. I think you've shared a ton of great design and entrepreneurial insight with people. Give yourself a pitch. Plug your products. Talk about it.
Sure. I think anyone out there that is in close contact with young kids that might learn to ride someday or want to learn to ride someday, I think our product, which is a leaning tricycle that really helps introduce that idea of leaning and learning to ride, is a great way to get them started. And it's a lot of fun. So that's all the learning stuff. You can rationalize to yourself about learning and wanting your kid to learn. But you know what? It's just fun. It's a fun product. And I think kids enjoy it. Every kid that we've seen that rides it, it's like a new world to them. So, they're laughing and smiling. And we did a couple early tests, almost like focus groups, and the kids were really great about, almost to the level where we had to separate the kids and say, okay, it's your turn, because everybody wanted to ride it so much. So bringing that level of fun to a young a young kid is pretty cool. And if you can do it, I mean, please, check out our website. It's dreischtrike.com. And then also we have a Kickstarter. Just do a search on Dreisch Trike. And even if you just want to give a good shout out, that's very helpful too.
Yeah, guys, check it out. They've got a great product. Sharing is caring, but when it's fun, you really don't want to. So check this out. They've got an awesome product, guys.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks so much for coming, Rich. You've been a great guest.
Okay, have a good one. Take care.
Thanks for listening to another episode of The Art of the Kickstart, where we believe makers, inventors, and entrepreneurs are changing the world and bringing humanity forward into the future. I'm your host, Matt Ward, and it's been a pleasure guiding you through this journey of creation and innovation. I hope you're inspired by this and check out artofthekickstart.com to get more information and tactics to help you launch your own business, product, and dreams.